I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council to order. Candace, would you confirm the roll call? I believe we have everyone here from the water company meeting, which just, and the UCFD meeting, which just ended. Cheryl, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Actually, Cheryl is muted.
Cheryl is muted.
Yeah.
I was just feeding the backup mayor.
Okay, good.
I pledge allegiance
To
To
the
the
flag.
flag.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On the consent agenda, I'd like to take items number 2, 3, and 5 off right now. We'll come back to those at a subsequent meeting. And we're looking for approval of the June 1st, item number 1, June 1st, 2021, Town Council Budget Hearing Meeting Minutes. Item number 4, acceptance into the public record of the July 2021 paid bills. And item number 6, approval of a proclamation declaring November 1st, 2021 to be Extra Mile Day in Carefree. Are there any questions or comments relative to items number 1, 4, and 6? Hearing none, would accept a motion to approve those 3 items.
Motion to approve those items.
Item 1, 4, and 6.
Okay, a motion's been made to approve items 1, 4, and 6. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And it's been seconded. Candace, would you please poll the council members?
Mayor, can you do the all in favor, any opposed?
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Items 1, 4, and 6 pass unanimously. Item number 7, call to the public. Would note that there's a 3-minute maximum if anyone would like to address the council. Candace, have we received any mail-ins or emails?
Mayor, I'm checking again. I haven't. I do see a couple individuals on that are attending, but I don't have any comments or raised hands.
You do not have any comments or raised hands.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Going on to item number 8, current events. I would make one announcement, and that is with regards to the council vacancy. The application timing terminated on the 30th of the preceding month. And we'll take this month and talk, give all of the council members an opportunity to talk to the 5 candidates. We have some excellent candidates that submitted the resumes and statements of interest. And then we'll come back on the September, I think it's 3rd or 4th, on the next council meeting in September and actually do a vote on that. Do any of the other council members have anything to talk about? Any announcements here? Hearing none, go on to item number 9, review, discussion, and possible action to approve the proposed proposal for engineering services.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I was muted here and I was thinking I was unmuted. I do have one event that'll be coming up on Saturday morning, August 21st, out at right at the Veterans Memorial. We'll be broadcasting our radio show and featuring veterans that morning from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning, the 21st. The Varsity Sports Show, Bob Jenkins will be a featured co-host for the hour, and any other veterans would encourage you to come out to the Veterans Memorial that morning from 9 to 10, Saturday, August 21st. It'll be on AM 1060. Thank you.
Okay, great. And that's at the Veterans Memorial in the Carefree Desert Gardens. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone on item number 8? Hearing none, we'll proceed on to the proposal for engineering services, street system inventory, and pavement condition assessment. Possible action on this with Rick Engineering Company for an update of the 10-year preventative maintenance plan, which would take us from 2021 through 2030. Mark, who's our new town engineer, would you like to take us through this, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council members. So yeah, as you stated, we'd like to talk about the renewal of the 10-year pavement maintenance program. And first off, I did make a mistake. I should say the current plan expires of June 30, 2022. So the new program will start in 2022 and run till 2032. So we got 3 requests for proposals in, and we have determined that the best fit for the town's pavement preventative maintenance plan is the RIC proposal. A little bit on what RIC is doing. So they are using what they're calling an infrastructure technology company called Roadbotics. And what it does, it's high tech. It uses a smart app on a cell phone, which gets mounted to the front of a van and takes videos of every street throughout the town. And then what's really interesting is it uses an artificial intelligence software program to rate the condition of each roadway. So for all us older engineers who have walked the streets and objectively come up with a pavement rating system, this takes out all the objectivity out of that. So that makes it so much better. So the Roadbotics simplifies the data collection process, as I said, by using a smartphone as well as artificial intelligence. As I said, we received 3 proposals. This is, in my mind, definitely the best fit, and it comes in at $35,000. And with that, open for any kind of questions.
Any
I have
questions?
a few questions. Sorry.
John?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Mark, a few questions. So the technology, is it relatively new? Is it proven?
Thanks for that, Mr. Vice Mayor. Yes, it is relatively new, but it has been proven. They have used it in many other municipalities, and it works very, very well.
So it's probably more cost effective than the old way.
Absolutely. And as I said, it takes the subjectivity out of the question, because it's all computer learning. And they've done it many times with many municipalities, and they're very comfortable in the results they get.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. So in reading through the proposal, if I got this right, we're going to end up with a budgetary cost to make all the required repairs that have been identified to all of our roads. That's something we've really never had our firm number on. Is that correct?
Well, thank you, Councilman Geiger. Yeah, I just want to be explicit. It's going to give us a budget, an estimated cost for those repairs, depending upon what level of preventative maintenance. And I think there's 10 levels, including chip seal, slurry seal, mill and overlay. I should say a thin mill and overlay, a thick mill and overlay. So yes, we will get an estimate, and it will be projected in 3 areas, years 1 to 3, years 4 to 7, and years 7 to 10. So the short answer to your question is yes, we will have an estimate for repairs on every street within the town.
And to further address your question, Councilman Geiger, we've had a plan in the past. We've always had 10-year plans. We probably are on our 3rd 10-year plan with the town. Each 10-year plan has a scope of work associated with preventative maintenance and a budgetary figure with those. What we don't have a figure for is if the council decides sometime in the future to rebuild all the streets, to make some drainage improvements, to put new asphalt down, those are significant costs, anywhere between 30 and $40 million, but we don't have an exact estimate for that. This plan does not get you that. This plan looks at the assets today, evaluates the best maintenance practice to deal with the distress being experienced with those streets, and puts a budgetary estimate to those respective projects.
So to make sure I understand that, and I think it's a positive, we don't necessarily have to rebuild all our roads. This artificial intelligence is going to analyze our roads and tell us what the most appropriate repairs are. Is that correct?
Well, so I'd like to change that line of thinking. What we're planning to do is, so every road needs some kind of maintenance to prolong its life, even if it's a fog seal. Now, what a fog seal does is it puts a thin layer of liquid asphalt, if you will, on the surface. And what that does, it reduces the amount of oxidation caused by the heat in Arizona. So every road will need some kind of maintenance fix, some a lot less than others. But yes, every road would need some kind of maintenance performed on it.
Mark, this is Steve. A quick question. In this process, is the intent to go through and fill all with this material? Is it a coating that goes on the road and seals the cracks as well? Is it an entire surface sealant, or I guess?
I'm sorry, Steve. I missed some of that.
You're breaking up.
I'm sorry. In this process, are we sealing just various cracks, or is this a coating that goes over the entire road surface?
Yes, and thank you for that question. In some instances, there will be roads that we will just fill in the cracks. Yes. So not every road will have a whole surface treatment. Some of them will just be crack sealing.
But Mark, just so I understand, so this project with Rick Engineering, it's going to give us an inventory of all our roads and what the recommended treatment should be, and it's also going to tell us what's the most in dire need of repair, like you said, a 1 to 3 and a different timelines.
Yes, thank you, Council Member Geiger. It's going to do that, plus it's also going to help us with looking at funding opportunities, which are very important. But you're absolutely right. It's going to give us a blueprint, if you will, on how to move forward with the maintenance required on our town roads. And it's going to rate those in categories such as not very severe at all to very severe. And so needless to say, we'll attack the ones that need the most work first.
Thank you. Just one last question for you, Gary. Would you say that this new proposal will give us a deeper understanding into the maintenance needs of our roads and the cost to get us there versus what we've done in the past?
Absolutely. I think the use of technology will support that, and I'm excited to finally have that technology available rather than physically walking the streets and making those estimations. So this is something that is relatively new, and it's exciting to introduce to the town to assist us in rating the streets.
Thank you.
Gary, this, like Tony was referencing, is the first time the city's going to have a quote-unquote baseline condition of all the roads going forwards, which will then facilitate your ability to focus on what areas streets need more capital budgeting allocation going forward and so forth. Would that be accurate?
No, we have had evaluations of our streets. Those evaluations were us walking the streets and creating estimations with the amount of cracking that's occurring. There's 14 indicators of distress. This program essentially imports all those distress levels to our streets and then outputs the type of projects that will deal with this distress in the most cost-effective manner. So it's a different way of evaluating it. Rather than analog, this is digital. So it allows us a more sophisticated way to analyze a street.
Yeah, that's fine. It's going to give you a future baseline of each segment of roads in the town. So you can
Correct.
make better decisions going forward, that's all.
And I'm assuming we'll have a visual record and we can go back and look at a specific area and see what it looked like 3 years ago.
That is correct.
Any further questions? Hearing none, would accept an authorization of $35,000, which are the funds necessary to perform a preventative pavement maintenance plan and prioritize roadway repairs with Rick Engineering. Would
I'll make
anyone
a
like to-
motion. I'll make a motion.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Candace, should we just do a verbal hands up on this one as well?
I'll do a roll call on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember D'Alessio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
You have 6-0, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So item number 9 has an approval. Thank you, Mark. Item number 10, review, discussion, and possible action to approve the proposed amendment number 2, additional 2 intersection pedestrian crosswalk improvement project with Rick Engineering Company for design, completion for plans, specifications, and estimates. Gary, would you and perhaps Mark like to take us through that, please?
Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Gary. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council members. So we had a discussion with MAG about 4 weeks ago. And as far as funding for the crosswalks is concerned, and they told us that they changed their evaluation system and also that they felt bad that they couldn't give us funding last time we went. So we are under the impression that we will get funding this time. Hopefully it's not a given, but we are hoping for it. And because of that, we've added 2 new crosswalks into Rick's engineering program. So the 2 new crosswalks are Cave Creek Road at Tom Darlington, which is our big intersection downtown, as well as Cave Creek Road at Tranquil Trail. That one's a little more involved because of the circumstances of where it is. Looks like we will need a hawk to put that crosswalk in. Now, a hawk, the acronym is a high intensity activated crosswalk. If you're not familiar with those, I can share my screen and show you what those look like, if that would be helpful. But so Rick decided, or we went out for an amendment for Rick's project to add these 2 new crosswalks. And they've come back, and remarkably, their amount happens to be $35,000 also. So it seems like everything I touch is turning into $35,000 now. Hopefully that won't be the case moving forward. But let me see if I can dig up this crosswalk. So let me see if I can take control here. Yes, here it is. Did that work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I can't see it, but, so there's a picture of a hawk. You've probably seen those around. I know there's a couple on Pima Road in Scottsdale. And they have yellow as well as red lights, and they get activated by a push button system. And when they go full red, non-flashing, the pedestrians will be able to cross the crosswalk safely by having the car stop prior to coming to the intersection. And with that, again, I'm available for questions.
Wow, that's quite a piece of equipment. I've seen that over by Kierland. Is that something we want to have? I mean, that seems like a pretty big piece of equipment to be out there. I don't know.
I was having the same reaction, Stephen. Are there even that many people who cross the Tranquil Trail? I mean, I know there's no crosswalk now, so it's probably not a good place to try and cross.
It would be a long distance to get to one of the other crosswalks. And my concern is that there are people, there's both seniors and young people that live in the apartments across the street from Town Hall that cross that street without any traffic light or any safety.
Are you talking Tranquil Trail or are you talking Hum?
Tranquil Trail, which is Bloody Basin and on the south
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so a couple of the issues, council members. The reason why we need a hawk at this location is, one, we're coming down a long downgrade. It's not exactly very steep. It's about 2.5%, but it is a very long downgrade. And the other issue that we run into is this is far enough from the town center at Tranquil Trail that the speed limit is still up to 35. It doesn't change down to 30 until we go beyond this intersection towards the town center. So that would be another reason why we would need something like the hawk there.
In addition, the other systems that we've evaluated are off to the side of the road. When you have two lanes with the respective speed that Mark alluded to, you could have truck traffic that blocks the lights on the side of the street. It's more visible when it's up above the street, especially when you're coming up to the crosswalk. So the idea behind these hawk systems is to create better visibility for this signalization. So when you're coming up to it, you will stop for those pedestrians. And ultimately, we're trying to make these crosswalks safer. We want to do it right. At this location, probably the best answer is that hawk system. Now the mast, the arm that comes across the street, will not be as long as the one in this picture. We have a median in the middle of our street. This one does not. This one comes across the entire width of that street. So our masses will not be as long, but there'll be a mass on either side of the street. So just understand that.
So I have a couple of questions. One, if eventually we go forward with the hawk system, what does such a system cost roughly? Is it $250,000 plus? It looks pretty extensive.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor, for that question. Our estimate currently is 200,000 for that system.
Okay, and my next question is, though we've talked about, at least kicked around ideas of some of our roads becoming one lane in each direction versus two. So if we implement this, say in a couple of years prior to doing anything with the number of lanes, do we have to start over? Can we just, is it telescoping? What does it still serve a purpose for us?
So that's a very good question, Mr. Vice Mayor. If that is a concern, and I'm not sure where we are, maybe Gary can enlighten us as far as going down a single lane. If that is the concern, we can probably design it so that it could be easily retrofitted to partake of those transactions. So if that's a concern, we could definitely make sure to design it as such.
Okay, well, thank you.
I had somewhat the same concern about the size and the magnitude of it, but then when I watch the speed at which traffic is going down these roads, we need something that really stands out and is highly visible. Otherwise, we're endangering residents.
Yeah, unfortunately, you cannot create stealth crosswalks. They just don't work. We're trying to design safety here, and it has to stand out. That's the intent, is to ensure that people stop for the pedestrians here.
One of the other
Let me ask you, if I may, Mayor, I have one more question to Mr. To the gentleman, Mark. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
Yes, I can.
As opposed to coming out from the side, going from the side of the street, going all the way out, and of course, as you referenced, we do have a center piece. Could we achieve the same thing, right? Instead of having it going all the way over the road, come from the center and go out like a T? So it wouldn't be so much of a overhang, if you will. It sounds to me like we would see the same thing and be less, less visually from the overhang business. That's all.
Yes, and thank you for that question.
Am I making myself clear on that?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Councilman. Yes, we could come out from the median, as well as we could do two systems, one on each side. So unfortunately, the drawing on the right in my screen there, it's not going to look like that. That's really a worst case scenario. And if anything, we're going to have two poles, one on each side, or two in the medians in each direction.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I have a comment, and Mark alluded to it when he first started here. John and I and Vince, we've had discussions with also. One of the things we're doing, and Gary has been working on this as well, trying to increase our visibility at funding authorities, so that when things come up and they come back to us and we can work with them more readily. They know us. No, we're down there. We're more aware of opportunities, and I mean, I don't know if this was a result of that, but I think as a continued posture for us as a small municipality, that makes some sense. Are there any further questions or comments?
One additional question for Mark. On the Cave Creek Road, Tom Darlington intersection, so we're talking about 4 crosswalks there, correct?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you for that question. Yeah, when we were first actually looking at it, I'm thinking that we only need some on the west side, but there's going to be very little equipment required for those crosswalks, and paint is cheap. And as well as maybe having arguments with the gas station owner, we had determined that it would probably be most efficient to have 4 crosswalks, as well as there are what we call pork chop islands too on the south side. So we would run the crosswalks into the islands, and then we'd have to demolish part of the island to get the pedestrians across the island and into the shopping centers.
Plus, it's a 4-way stop already. It's great.
Correct.
Anything else?
Hey, Mark, if you could stop sharing, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that because I can't find my screen. Oh, here I see it. Yes, should be good now. Yep.
Okay. Is there someone who would make a motion to give the authorization for $35,000 in funds to complete the crosswalk design of 2 new intersections as a part of the pedestrian crosswalk improvement project, which has just been presented by Mark and Gary?
Motion to approve contract amendment number 2, additional 2 intersections, pedestrian crosswalk improvements project allocating $35,000.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Candace, would you please poll the council?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
aye.
Councilmember DeLisio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
That's a vote of 6-0.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. So item number 10 is approved. Thank you, Mark. Item number 11, review, discussion, and possible action for authorization of the use of capital improvement funds to install security cameras within the town of Carefree Desert Gardens. Gary, would you like to take this one, please?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Over the past several years, we've received a tremendous amount of vandalism within the gardens. This is a listing of some of the things that we're encountering with kids climbing up the sundial, skating down the sundial, scratching the back half of the sundial after it was freshly painted. We had some nice furniture around our fireplace on the west side of the gardens. A portion of that furniture was stolen. We have damage from bikes and skateboarders that come into the gardens after hours and use our lovely walls, seat walls that are around the gardens as an obstacle course so that they scratch the paint off there and make their marks throughout the gardens. We had bathroom fixtures that have been damaged. We have lights, landscape lights throughout the gardens that have been stolen. And we even had plant material that has been desecrated. So these are a number of things that we've encountered over the past several years. And what we're finding is that most of this is occurring. No. Most of this damage is occurring after hours when the visibility is limited. There's not staff around to monitor the gardens. Our janitorial services is not around. We have asked MCSO to step up their patrols, but they can't be in the gardens 100% of the time. So it's only as good as that officer being there and catching those bad actors. And one thing that we found is that technology is there 100% of the time, and technology has improved. So we have night vision, we have high resolution, we have Wi-Fi, we have some sophisticated cameras that can do facial recognition and track people, the bad actors throughout the garden and see what is occurring after hours. So we also know that security cameras are everywhere we look today, even in our homes. Everybody has these Ring doorbells and other complementing camera systems. Throughout public places, they're using very sophisticated cameras. So we started evaluating different systems, and I put together a set of criteria. First and foremost is it has to withstand our desert extremes, our heat and sometimes even the snow that we have in the wintertime. We have to have high resolution so we can make out that the faces and the nighttime visibility so we see who's coming and going. We have to use smart technology for that facial recognition so that we can prosecute those bad actors, and then provide push notification to those in the authority so that they could come down here and catch these folks and cite these folks. We also wanted cloud-based technology, no hard drives that are susceptible to failure, and Wi-Fi based so that we don't have to put a hard line to each one of these cameras. We also wanted to have a vendor that has successfully managed expansive public places. And what we found is a common thread, and that's Verdaka technology is used in a lot of public settings throughout the United States. And the local supplier here is also part of the Mojave Purchase Cooperative that gives us the lowest procured public price. Essentially, we're looking at 7 activity zones, and that's displayed by this aerial here with the yellow stars. one by the sundial located here that will capture the entire sundial, as well as the fireplace on the eastern side of here. One by the splash pad, and will also capture the various ponds that we have in this location. One external to the restrooms to capture the traffic coming and going into the restrooms. One by the amphitheater to capture the traffic coming in and using the amphitheater. One by the western fireplace where we received or we had the furniture stolen. One on the south side of the entrance into the gardens to capture the bridge here where we have received some vandalism in the past, as well as ingress, egress into the gardens. And a final one by the kids' play area where we have also received some vandalism. So this covers the majority of the areas where we are susceptible to that vandalism. And we can augment this system in the future too. If we find that there's additional areas that we need additional coverage, we can certainly supplement that in the future. The cost of the system, I have to say that Mark didn't touch this, so it's not $35,000. It's just shy of $20,000. That includes all the cameras, the 5-year license agreement, 10-year warranty on all the hardware, and installation, which includes the electrical extension to the respective cameras, 4 Cord-10 poles, and 3 existing Cord-10 poles in the garden that we'll be using. And the action in front of the council tonight is the authorization of approximately $20,000 of capital funds to purchase and install the garden security cameras to help mitigate this ongoing vandalism and to catch these bad actors. Be glad to address any questions that the council might have.
Hey, Gary, one, I think it's a great idea because it'll not only help with vandalism, it'll help with personal safety. But what it'll do is it'll help possibly catch bad people, but it's not necessarily deterrent. So we also have signs up in the garden saying that the area is monitored. I mean, that's a very effective deterrent.
Absolutely, we can add those signs as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I agree, Gary. And the question that I had is there, and I've chased my share of kids and even adults for that matter. They're riding their bikes through the gardens they shouldn't be and whatnot. So there are safety issues, particularly with our vulnerable population walking their dogs at night and people speeding through there on their bikes. But is there the possibility? Have you entertained the possibility of maybe having one of those cameras? The one that's around the sundial that people can view as a more or less a tourist attraction that they can look get online and see the sundial or something like that. Maybe make those accessible to the public.
I want to be careful about mixing public availability of this versus creating securities for the town and those assets. So. That would probably be a different system if we want to do something like that. But this system is purely for securing the gardens and ensuring that we have the technology to monitor and catch these bad actors coming into the town of Carefree and harming our assets out there.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions?
Yes, I was just, Gary, just real quick. What do you think we're spending on these kind of repairs annually?
Good question. Obviously, it varies with the type of vandalism that occurs in a given year. The furniture that was stolen was probably $15,000 in furniture right there.
Yeah.
Restroom repairs. I recall one instance where they flushed mop heads down our pipes and exploded the fixtures. That was close to $2,000 to fix the plumbing there. Repainting the sundial, it depends upon the damage, but could be up to $5,000. Desecrating plants, you either replace the plant or you remove the plant. So just varying degrees of things. I estimated 20,000, but that's probably the low end of what we've seen over time.
That's terrible. Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing none, would accept a motion to authorize $20,000 from capital funds to purchase and install the garden security cameras.
Motion to authorize $20,000 from capital funds to authorize purchase of security cameras in the gardens.
Is there
Second,
a second?
second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Candace, would you please poll the council members?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember D'Alicio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
aye,
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
That's 6-0.
Thank you all. That motion passes. Going on to item number 12, review, discussion, and possible action to approve resolution 2021-14, authorizing the execution of addendum number 3 to the Advance in Aid of Construction Water Facilities Agreement dated June 7, 2006. Mr. Neese, would you like to address that one?
Actually, Greg, you online?
I am here. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Part to what Greg brought up.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Peterson, members of the council. Let me try sharing my screen for my PowerPoint also. Can you see that?
Yeah.
yes,
Great. Good evening, council members. Agenda item number 12 is a discussion of repayment modifications for the capital advance. This will be the same presentation that you saw at the water company and the district board meeting, so I apologize, but we'll do it for the benefit of any citizens in attendance who weren't able to attend that board meeting. And there's a little bit of a background on this issue. In 2006, the town and the district, and by district, we mean the Town of Carefree, Arizona Utilities Community Facilities District, which is a sole shareholder in the water company, and people can think of that interchangeably as a water company. We entered into a repayment agreement that we officially called the Advance in Aid of Construction of Water Facilities Repayment Agreement. And so we just shortened the agreement name as the Capital Advance Agreement. Essentially what this agreement called for was the repayment for various improvements to the water system that the town funded when the water company was in its fledgling stages early on, right after the district had acquired the water company in 1998. The original repayment amount covered in this capital advance from the water company and district to the town was $2.3 million. There's been 2 subsequent revisions to the capital advance repayment agreement, one in 2011 and one in 2012, that have increased that repayment amount from the water company to the town to $3.2 million. The repayment from the water company to the town is principal only. There is no interest associated with this repayment contract. The plan for this repayment contract was to make it seamless for our water company customers. As you might recall, the original bond debt when the district acquired the water company back in 1998 was $414,000 per year. That was a 20-year bond, so that was being paid by the district and the water company to the bondholders through the end of June of 2018. At that point, the bond repayment debt was extinguished, and that's when the capital advance repayment began. So in December of 2018, that annual payment of $414,000 was then earmarked to go back to the town instead of to the bondholders, and then would be in place until repayment of the town for that $3.2 million was completed which was originally scheduled to end, the repayment to the town was scheduled to end in June of 2026. So we have started repayments to the town. The water company and district have started repayments to the town. And to date, we've paid upwards of $1.25 million have been repaid to the town for this debt. The reason for the requested modification by the water company and the district to the town is the bonding effort for the Carefree Water Consolidation Project. That was approved last week by the board of directors of the district and the water company. So on July 27th, that bonding effort was approved. Those bonds will be sold soon, and the investors and bond rating agencies for that bonding effort prefer that the debt coverage for the water company and the district be at a level of 1.2, which means that we collect from our water company customers about 20% more than the amount of money that needs to be repaid to our bond holders and in any kind of debt. So if we pay that full $414,000 repayment amount back to the town in the early years of the new bond, which the new bonding effort is a 30-year bonding effort, that pulls our coverage, our debt coverage ratio below that 1.2 number. So this requested modification of repayment does address that issue. This slide shows you how the repayment of the $3.2 million will be modified. This middle column shows you how it was originally anticipated. It shows a 6-month repayment period, so $207,000 or just over $207,000 per 6 months. It was anticipated that it would be paid starting in December of 2018 and then would end in June of 2026. That $3.2 million would be totally repaid to the town. The right-hand column then shows you the revised recommended, the requested repayment amount. We continue to make $207,000 payments for 6 months, every 6 months up through the end of June of 2023, when repayments of the new bond kick in. At that point, we're reducing the payments to the town for 4 years until December of 2027, when it does kick back up to the full $207,000 repayment amount. And then the last payment amount would be in December of 2028, when the full $3.2 million would be repaid to the town. This yellow area shows the area essentially where the payments would be, repayment amounts would be adjusted. So the requested modification would be approved via Town Resolution 2021-14. The total repayment amount from the water company and district to the town remains the same, $3.2 million. The repayment period is extended because of the adjustments of the repayment amounts by about 2.5 years, but it does provide the district and the water company that continuous 1.2 debt coverage that the investors and the rating agencies are looking for to get us the highest bond rating and the highest investor appeal, so that we can get the lowest rates for our water company customers. And the district and water company board has approved this adjustment to the capital advance in the board meeting that was held prior to the council meeting. So with that, I would open it up to any questions that you have, and a possible motion is shown on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Crossman. Are there any questions or comments from council members? This really is the mirror of what we approved in the prior meeting with the extension, and this would be the acceptance by the town. I'd ask one question, Mr. Cross. Well, I'd ask it, Gary, what kind of interest rate are we getting on our reserve funds right now, roughly?
Probably less than 1%.
Less than 1%. I think last time I checked, there was perhaps even less than 0.5%. So, you know, this is helping get a better bond rate for all of the residents of Carefree. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
No, I'm going to take off my water company hat and put on my town council hat and move that we approve resolution 2021-13. 14, sorry.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded that we approve resolution 2021-14. Candace, would you please poll the council members?
Certainly, Mayor. Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Dionisio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
You have 6-0.
Thank you all. Okay, that the items in number 12 are approved from the point of view of the town council of the municipality of Carefree, the town of Carefree. Item number 13, review, discussion, and possible action to approve resolution 2021-13, declaring a redevelopment area, establishing the boundary of the redevelopment area in the Carefree Village Center, and declaring the area of the Central Business District for Carefree, Arizona. I'd like to turn it over to Steve Prokopek, who's our Director of Economic Development, and ask him to take us through some of the thinking and what this would entail.
Sure, Mayor. Council, thank you very much. And again, yes, I'll be seeking approval of the resolution.
Excuse me, Steve, your sound is all messed up.
Okay. I don't know about that. What's
You want to come down by us, Steve?
Sure. Can I put my computer in there?
Why don't you come down here? I think Gary can pull up your presentation.
Can you email me your presentation?
Yeah, either that or mute your audio and call in.
Is that better?
No.
Steve, do you want the call-in number?
You got that number?
Sure. It is 66, of course, 1 first, and then 669-900-6833. And then do you have the meeting number?
Meeting ID?
It's 322-972-9660 and the pound. Don't worry about that, just hit pound.
Join the meeting.
There you go.
In the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. You have been added to the waiting. You cannot call or listen until the host begins the meeting.
Can you,
Okay. Yeah.
Mute yourself, Steve.
I did. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
We're good now?
yep,
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
As Steve is getting ready, let me make a couple comments here. You know, downtowns, as we know, come in all shapes and sizes, and they are kind of the heart and soul of every community. You think of some of the communities that you go and visit, It's not about just the neighborhoods, but what leaves the lasting impression are those downtowns. They are what define the areas. Think of our neighboring community, Cave Creek, and the whimsical Western nature of their downtown and the people that come up here to experiencing that. Many communities throughout the metropolitan area use a planning tool called a redevelopment area to help facilitate partnerships with the public and private sector. And Steve will go through that process with you tonight and the delineation of this redevelopment area and what it brings to Carefree. But it's important to outline that change occurs with every downtown, whether you like it or not. Towns can seize control of that by using the redevelopment areas to help facilitate these partnerships, or they can watch a slow deterioration. And that's why governments get involved in this. And you see that, for example, in Heritage Square in downtown Gilbert. It's an excellent example of a redevelopment district. They had to declare the statutory requirement slum and blight. That's part of Arizona revised statute. And so in doing so, it opened up the tool chest so that they could partner with the private sector. And Steve has done an excellent job going around and speaking to many of the businesses and property owners about this opportunity so that we can help adapt to the changes in the marketplace and help guide development so that we have a more successful town center that can help to better brand Carefree. So that being said, let me pass the baton on to Steve, who will discuss the process with the redevelopment area.
So I'm hoping you now can see my screen and the presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary, for and Mayor, Council. Yeah, again, and so the redevelopment process is a two-stage process, and we've had conversations before. I presented this to Council when I did the update for the town center. That was I think the hour and a half presentation I did back like March, April timeframe. And at that time, we talked about the idea of being able to implement a lot of the things that were inside the Village Center Master Plan really required us to have an enhanced set of tools that we just didn't have. So we went down the pathway of examining a redevelopment area. And so it's a two-stage process. And the first stage is really just accepting the fact that we realize we have an issue and that we've defined the area that we want to have that issue exists. And that's what we're doing today. We're not going to be talking about specific plans or anything specific to what needs to occur, because that's part of the phase 2 planning process. Again, just to kind of reiterate some of the tools of what a redevelopment area allows us is it gives us as a town the ability to be able to buy and sell real estate more in lines of how a private sector would do that. Instead of having to just go to auction and go to the highest bidder, it gives us the opportunity to be able to go to RFP. So if we wanted to redevelop and put something specific to the site where town hall is and we wanted to relocate town hall, we can go with the best project based on how the redevelopment plan shapes out. So it could be a restaurant, or it could be residential and mixed use. There's a lot, however we develop into that plan. The second is it really allows us to do private and public partnerships. And this is really, to me, one of the largest benefits, because you always have government trying to do things and then in the hopes that the private sector will respond. In this case, we actually work together and we can commingle concepts, ideas, and projects where we can do things in conjunction with the private sector as public sector. We can also then go out for CDBG grants, which are federal grants, and also look at other state grants that will apply to redevelopment areas, also for safety issues and ADA things as well. And then it gives us a wide array of financing tools, and as far as being able to do bonding, or as we go through and identify all the infrastructure that we would look to do to possibly put in place as we go through a planning process, we would also have to identify what those financial responsibilities are to make all those things happen, and then cooperatively work with the private property owners and the businesses that would be impacted by that, and find ways that we would be able to put financing in place. But what it doesn't impact the town's financing capabilities. These are offset from that. So, and as a small town, and we know we have limited spending caps, it'll allow us to not have impacts upon those. And then at the end of the day, it just gives us a higher level of planning. You know, with the existing master plan, it talks about, you know, really, really high level of all the things we wish we could do. This level of planning tells us how we're going to do it and how we're going to pay for it. Again, this is phase one, and what we're doing is just the initial finding and necessity of the boundary. So the approval today just sets us on a pathway to go into a redevelopment planning process, which will probably take a significant amount of time, probably, I'm guessing 8 months. And then we come back through planning and zoning and council to get that all approved as well. So none of the things that we're allowed to do with the redevelopment area will take place until we get to the redevelopment planning approval. So to this date, you know, really it started off as just looking at the existing studies that we have and the presentation that I provided you to council. And I don't want to rehash all the things that have been, but it's pretty obvious in the documents we've had in the past that we had issues with revitalization and redevelopment. I did make the council presentation back in April. And then as far as that, council wanted me to further evaluate this with the Economic Development Technical Advisory Panel and the Planning and Zoning group, Commission. So we had a workshop between those two groups. And we had Michael Baker International facilitate that. And as part of that facilitation, it was really just kind of presenting to them the boundary and the initial necessity of findings. And by the way, you should have a report that shows the final version of that initial assessment of findings, which validates what we need, taking this particular step. So from that commission workshop, we were then as staff guided to go ahead and take the boundary and the necessity of findings and then go and outreach to property owners and get input on the creation of the redevelopment area. In that process, I sent letters out to every property owner, as well as reached out by email to about 85% of them for the emails that I had. And then I've spoken probably to about 80% of the property owners directly, have countless hours. I've spoken to many of the business owners as well, and have talked to lots of residents, just in, walking through the town center and in any capacity being able to get input as to, how people view and what their assessment is of the town center and the idea of moving forward on a planning process like this. And I've received overwhelming support from the business owners. I did have one letter that came through from Mariachi Plaza, who had some concerns specific to the use of eminent domain. And I believe that property owner is on line with us here today. I know he was going to try to be here. And so we had several communications regarding that. So I'll be touching on our position on eminent domain further in this presentation. Once I went through that and received the overwhelming support, it just seemed necessary, at this point, to go and do the official notification to the property owners. I've received no further response from property owners other than positive, responses to move forward on this. Everybody seems to be excited about getting the planning process. And so here we are at the council resolution. Again, you do have the report that And so again, the phase two then would be, once we get done with this, I'll be meeting with the Economic Development Technical Advisory Panel on the 9th, and I'm going to be putting together an RFQ that will allow us to go out and we can start analyzing that to bring in a consultant that would help us get through the planning process and who has the expertise in redevelopment. And more than likely what we would do is expand upon the existing master plan and add all the elements that are required for the redevelopment plan itself. So when we go through the findings and when you look through the resolution, it talks about things like slum and blight. And like Gary said, every community struggles and goes through this part, right? And nobody wants to be called a slum, and we're not a slum. Carefree, Arizona is not, but the other test of that is blight. And blight is conditions that, where we have, and it's laid out right here, and this is what's part of the state law: inadequate and defective street layouts, We talk about safety issues all the time. Matter of fact, we had presentations today about crosswalks and how we can impact safety for people to be able to access the town center. And even within the town center, we have a lot of sidewalks that go nowhere and streets that kind of really just create situations that maybe could be laid out better. We do have properties that haven't developed or vacant lots, and so those lots are impacted by the same thing. Faulty lot layouts, and over time, these things happen. Prior to the town being a town, it was in the county, and as the town developed, it really got parcelized. A lot of different things happen, and this will give us an opportunity to kind of really address that and create a little bit more cohesion. Again, the unsafe conditions, we all know that there's the pedestrian issues that we have. Diversity of ownership's another thing. Just within a small area, we have 60 owners, separate owners of property. So it's to move forward. It's incumbent upon us to be able to bring all this together and get everybody working towards common and cooperative outcomes that are tangible. And then other things like obsolete platting, and then existence of conditions that endanger life, property by fire, or other causes. Again, it comes down to safety. It comes down to analyzing and looking at how we deal with our vacant properties that, in some cases have homeless people living in it, in fire conditions. I don't want to get too crazy here, but, they do pose that. And as far as just being, collecting trash, being dumping areas, and those types of things. So this area shows the boundary, and then when we did the assessment, this really just is kind of the summary of property by property and location by location by kind of how we see revitalization and redevelopment, and it kind of talks about places that we see that really need some serious help, some places that really just need to be some risk positioning. And again, this is not what we need to do tomorrow. This is as we look at revitalization and redevelopment. These are things that are these plans are 10-year plans. This is looking at a horizon for where we want to get to. And so that's a big part of it. The other part of it is when we talk about redevelopment, revitalization, as part of the process, we can also talk about enhanced design guidelines. We can talk about, mixed use zoning categories and things that are really specific. We can go down to the property level to do that. That will allow all these property owners to maximize the value of these properties, but also allow us to kind of build a neighborhood here that really is, something that's unique, but still represents what Carefree represents. And so, where you see maybe a single story retail building, maybe there's an opportunity that we can do things with residential on those sites too. Now, this is all fitting part. We're in the process with Kimley Horn on the pedestrian crosswalk and circulation study. The pedestrian or the circulation signage and parking studies. And we had our first stakeholder group. That will be a component to what we'll be looking at as part of the redevelopment plan. And so, and it goes with the crosswalk study. So a lot of the things that we're working on are all kind of coming together. And you can almost look at the pedestrian safety issues we're looking at on Cape Creek Road and Tom Darlington as kind of a phase one. The Kimley Horn study is kind of a phase two of that. And then that all fits in with the overall part of the redevelopment plan, which will be part of the town center master plan. So all these things are really kind of coming together. Again, the redevelopment plan process is, to me, the real critical part of this, and this is really the hard work. And I put a lot of effort, and there's a lot of folks who put a ton of effort into getting to the point of just getting you the information that you have to make this decision. But really, where the rubber meets the road is the ability to get all these property owners, the businesses, and members of the community engaged in the planning process. This is where we really identify and build upon the vision. And we come to the point where we put tangible solutions together. This isn't really necessarily the high level stuff, but it gets us down into a little bit more weeds about what is it from a location to location that we really want to accomplish. And we get input from all parties, and then we put costs associated to that, and we figure out how those things are going to get paid for. But the idea is that we're building value. And so we all agree that as we get through the process, that the returns on investment are there that justify the actions for being able to do the things that that get identified in the planning process. I do want to now come to the eminent domain, and what you're looking at here is straight from the law itself. There's been a lot of discussion around eminent domain use for redevelopment. And of course, in the early days of putting this out there, we have to say it because there is the opportunity that a town can use eminent domain for redevelopment purposes. I will tell you that in 2008, the voters in Arizona approved a law that basically stated that economic development is not considered a public use, and it really limited the use of redevelopment eminent domain. And the rationale behind it was that there were cities and towns that were going through and buying out viable businesses and putting in another developer. And you know, so that is not anything that we're interested in doing, nor do we have the funds to do anything like that, nor is it even legal to do that anymore. And on top of that, to be able to utilize, you know, tax revenues and employment gains and all those other, in general economic health, isn't even valid either as a public use. So public use really is into water, you know, power, you know, really your utilities, streets, those types of things. And so the second part of that is when we look at eminent domain as it relates to redevelopment, it's further been limited to really the only way you can do it is if the building is truly condemnable, that you can go through and look at and make the justification, they call it the burden of proof, that the building is either abandoned, unfit for human habitation or use, and poses a public health threat. And that the only way you can remove that is through the condemnation process. And even then, that has to be determined by a court of law. So we as a legislative body can't make that determination. We can only go to a court and get that determination made. So the burden of proof is extremely difficult. From the reality of the situation, I don't particularly care for the use of eminent domain for redevelopment or revitalization. I would prefer that we just simply focus on working with our property owners. They've made significant investments in their properties, and the more cooperatively we work together, the more and the better. And doing the things to identify the types of projects that are going to advance the value of this area is really where I want to focus on. And Gary, I know you maybe had a couple of things you wanted to say, just kind of from town administration regarding eminent domain.
I would emphasize categorically, the town will not be using eminent domain in this redevelopment process. That is not where we're at. We're about cultivating partnerships with our businesses and our property owners. That's what this plan is about. That is what Steve has been doing and cultivating. And I think that's the result of the support he has received to date in this redevelopment plan and the definition of this area.
Thanks, Gary. And with that, I'm usually pretty long-winded, so I try to talk fast and keep it short. But this is important stuff, and it's been a lot of effort and time to get to this point. But we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And so, with that, any questions?
Are there any questions? I would make one comment, and this, I know this has been a long, laborious, cooperative project. And what the town is trying to do is work with the merchants, with the property owners downtown to develop something that they are in accord with, that they support, that they want to help develop over time. And that's our sole objective. I'll underscore what Gary said about eminent domain. Town has absolutely no interest in that in this instance. The only time we have ever considered it was for the public good, and that was a single isolated instance. But I think this one, Steve has gotten, I don't want to say, he's gotten strong support from our merchants and property owners that this is something good for the town. And I think as it gets fleshed out for the residents of town, it will be, it's visionary. It's let us collectively determine a vision and let's start to take steps to achieve that vision. And this gives us additional financing and partnership and other aspects that the town and our businesses can utilize to help get there.
Just
So-
a comment, if I may, Mayor, Steve, that was a very nice presentation, and I'm very excited about this project you're working on. We really need it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yes,
I'd like to say that I've sat in on meetings with this Economic Development Technical Advisory Panel, and these folks are true professionals, both in talking about successful business people in our community, residents in our community, and just people that do business here, and they have a good finger on the pulse of what we want and where we want to be, essentially, for lack of a better phrase, where we want to be when we grow up. And giving this town that seems disjointed in certain parts, in blending it together and giving it an identity and making it a true economically vibrant area without necessarily growing too big. So hats off to this report, Steve, and to this committee then in the work that they've put out there in moving us forward.
thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yes,
I have one quick. Go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just to reiterate what Gary said and the mayor said about eminent domain. That certainly is not on our agenda of things to do, not at all. And if you go back to the definitions of potential candidate properties that Steve listed, from where I view it, we don't have any candidate properties. So there's not even any properties that would fit the bill that would give any pause for anyone to think about moving forward down an eminent domain path. Second point is part of what I was thinking about is why do we have the boundaries that we have? And if we look at that map of the development district that Steve showed us, there are little symbols just scattered throughout that show us why the map is what it is, including the Bashes Center. So it's very well thought out. And the other one question for you, Steve, is, so I understand why this would be good for a business owner, but what would give, not necessarily a business owner, but business owners and especially property owners, what would give them pause if the community is moving forward with a redevelopment district?
Mayor Crane, or Vice Mayor Crane, it's a good question. And, the only thing I think that, we need to be conscious of, I don't know if we give pause. I mean, eminent domain was the one that gave people pause. I would say the only other thing is that as we identify infrastructure projects that may be public infrastructure projects, when we look at how we fund those things and whether we go through some kind of enhanced municipal district or, some kind of maybe secondary property tax or something like that, or some kind of agreement where everybody agrees to pay, that, there may be, that may increase some costs. But again, we go through the planning process, we do everything eyes wide open, and then we get consensus and we get agreement. That's why we don't move fast through the planning process, because we identify things that really make sense. And if we have to phase those things through, we do that. And then as we do the financial analysis, that financial analysis will also will require us to look at our return on investments that we make. So we're just not spending money and not understanding, or at least not being able to articulate what that return on investment is going to be back to the property owner. So, we want things that enhance property values. We want things that are going to enhance revenues to the town, make businesses more successful, get more people through the door, make this a more accessible area. So those, and in my conversations with property owners specific to that, because that's one of the things that we talk about is, how do you pay for all this? I think when we talk about how we can improve the area and where that can go, I think a lot of the property owners have a shared vision in that as well. And so they're ready to go on that journey and figure out how we can get this done.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the council members?
Yeah, I just got one that I don't know if Steve or Gary is the best person to answer this, but in the resolution, Could you explain to us why we're using the wording, there exists a state of slum or blighted areas? And number two, we get into contribute substantially to the increasingly to the spread of disease and crime. Why is that language being used in the resolution?
So, yeah, I'll address that, Councilmember Geiger. That language is required per the Arizona revised statute, that the town must declare that. It's written right into the statute. So what you're reading came right out of the state law. Scottsdale had to do it. Gilbert had to do it. Glendale, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix. I mean, all the towns in any redevelopment area that's been created. Peoria Sports Complex, when they did that, it was all into land, and they had to go through that resolution. So it's just one of the things that they put in there. What's interesting about it is then the test they have is really to meet the either slum or blight conditions, and then I shared with you what those blight conditions are. So, and it's really not as awful as it sounds when you look at those particular conditions. And so, I'm a rule follower when it comes to this, and so that's why you see what you see. And I didn't want to sugarcoat that and do it the wrong way.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to get clarification that we're not declaring that our downtown is a slum.
No, we're not. All we're agreeing to is that we understand that there's some conditions that lead to blight and that have impacted our ability to go through revitalization. I'll also say that in any case I've ever seen redevelopment area get created, I've never seen it have a negative impact on the community or the neighborhood that it's been. Matter of fact, it's always been a positive impact, because it automatically encourages developers to want to seek investment.
Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great job, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
So just going back to Councilman Geiger's question. So the 5 bullets in the resolution, they're basically like boilerplate bullets that are required by the laws that govern this process?
Vice Mayor Crane is exactly right. It came straight out of what's in the resolution, came straight out of the Arizona revised statutes.
Okay.
The one thing that you see in there, and I want to mention this, is I included that we're going to label this area as what's called the CBD, or Essential Business District. The Central Business District also is another area that allows us to maybe do some specific things that give us more tools. When we have what's called the government property lease excise tax. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to lease our ground instead of sell it. By designating a central business district, we would have the opportunity to potentially look at like a property tax abatement that would maybe encourage investment for a specific project. Those are things we've done before. We wouldn't be able to enable that for a year after creating the central business district, but the state always seems to tie resources to that designation, whether it's inflow incentives or other incentives. So as we move down the road and other things become available to us, it just gives us a more expanded toolbox.
Okay, thank you. I would accept a motion to approve resolution 2021-13, declaring a redevelopment area, establishing the boundaries of the redevelopment area, which were shown on the map that Steve put up there in the Carefree Village Center, and declaring the area to be the central business district for Carefree, Arizona. Is there someone who will make that motion?
I move. Go ahead.
Oh, I move we approve resolution 2021-13.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Candace, would you please poll the council members?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Absolutely.
Councilmember DiLisio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
I like the word absolutely, and I'll use that.
I think that's a 6-0.
Thank you. Okay. Well done, Steve. So that passes 6-0. Continued success to all of our merchants and property owners and to yourself. We look forward to the fulfillment of the vision which you create.
And also not only Steve, but we have a number of the advisory committee members on the call. So thanks to them as well.
Thanks to all of them.
Yeah, thank you. It's the hard work. It really is. It's been a big collaborative, cooperative process. And the advisory committee, as Councilman Delicio said, they've just been invaluable as far as being able to provide guidance.
Excellent. That's what you've been saying to us all along. And we're starting to see the results of that. Item number 14, review, discussion, and possible action to approve a patio expansion ground lease agreement with Venues Cafe, which is located at 34 Easy Street in Carefree. And this is related to item number 15. Do you want to take them individually, Steve, or do you want to take them together?
Look, if it's okay, I could take them together, Mayor.
Okay.
All right, now I just got to do that specific one presentation. No, my screen is not letting me get to my PowerPoint. Hold on a sec. There it goes. Can you see my screen?
No, did you screen share? You click on screen share and then click on your PowerPoint.
It is not showing up in the list of available files. I don't know why.
Steve, did you open the PowerPoint?
I did. And I don't know why it's not there. It's right here. I apologize here. Okay, so I can't wait till we get back in person. All right, let me do this. And share screen. There we go. It just popped up finally. Now, can you see it?
There, you got it.
Cool. Sorry about that. So a while back, we, during the pandemic, we've been talking with venues, and actually even before that, I know Gary, I've been talking with venues about the idea of utilizing, expanding their patio into the parking area on Easy Street. And during the pandemic, a lot of businesses throughout the United States were encouraged to do so because they couldn't have inside seating. And so we started we engaged conversations with venues, and we talked about how we could accomplish that. And originally we were looking at some type of easement, but really what we came to the conclusion was to make sure that we did everything by the book, that we really needed to do a lease, they needed to pay rent. And so that's what we ended up negotiating with venues. I just want to kind of quickly go through the lease terms that we're looking at here. We're looking at a 5-year lease with 2 5-year renewals. The area is about 472 square feet. 500 annual lease payment. The lease payment will increase by 15% per renewal. So basically that's just 3% per year, but we won't charge them that unless they renew, and then that lease rate will go up by 15%. It's, on such a small piece to try to manage it year to year for 3%. It's like $5. We're not gonna. It just doesn't make sense. We're gonna look at restriping some of the existing parking areas, and this will be paid by venues to do that, so we can make up for any lost parking spaces. So they're gonna be displacing 3. We're gonna pick up an extra space, relocate the ADA spaces. Actually, I think a more productive area. And as part of that, we're actually gonna add some added bicycle parking. And then the improvements that we're going to make, and this actually kind of came through the EdTech group as well, which was kind of nice to talk about it, was that, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. So what we need to do is make sure that whatever improvements get made, that we can easily take those out after 5 years and return this back to a parking situation, and we can evaluate at that time. And then as part of that, they'll have to maintain the existing path, pedestrian walkway that goes between the current patio and where this patio will exist, which is about a 44-inch walkway, and ADA is 36 inches, so we should be good with that. Yeah, and then here again in the background, I got these slides back, kind of backwards, but you can see the process we kind of went through, and I just explained to you, you know, where we are, and this really was kind of taking something out of COVID. Customers really responded to it. How this patio area fit in with the pavilion was really great. People can come and grab a drink or get dinner and go watch a show. And then it also just created a really nice sense of atmosphere as you're coming up and down Easy Street. So many people commented on how cool it was at night to have the lights in the patio and the people sitting out, you know, kind of out into the street area there. This is the actual leased area. I did go out and set markers. So this is a physical legal description of the site. Just wanted to point that out. And then what's, I think everybody's interested is, you know, kind of what the base is going to look like. So the patio itself, you can see the bike parking area will look like this. She's also going to be looking at putting in an extended canopy from her existing canopy, which will not be a permanent fixture to the building. Again, we just need to be able to have something that eventually could be taken down, but it'll have a permanent appeal. So nothing out there is going to look schlocky. It's going to be paver over sand, and then those pavers can be adhered to the asphalt. And then whether it's a pergola or umbrellas or however, you know, we look at putting some kind of shade structure out there, she will be required to get all permits. So she'll go through permitting, you know, Mike to go do all that. This has already been evaluated and looked at by the engineering director, as well as planning and Mike as well. So we've already done a lot of evaluation on this, but she still has to go through the process and get the proper permits on that. When we look at the parking areas, what's going to happen, you can see in area D there, that's the like parking area. Area C, which is currently 2 spaces, it's a single space, and then the handicap space, that'll actually be converted into 2 regular spaces. Then in area B, we're going to mark off 2 handicap spaces. One will be van accessible, and one will be auto accessible. And what's nice about this solution is you can see where the current handicap spaces are. There's 2 5-foot areas that you have for accessing out of the. You can actually just do a shared space, a shared 5-foot area. And then when we look at the area next to area B going across in area A, you can restripe that and see the same number of parking spaces that are currently out there today. And if I went and measured the spaces, and they're few, but because they sit on the outside of a curve, we can actually go down from the approximately 9.5 plus feet on the inside of the curve, go down to 9 feet. But because of the curvature, by the time you get to the middle of the car, it's a 9.5-foot space. To give you kind of a reference point to that, the spaces at the Basha Center are 9 feet. So most of our spaces in Town Center right now are currently about 9.5 to 10 feet. So they're pretty big. But in this case, in this scenario here, we'll be able to still maintain a pretty decent sized space. And with that, see if I have any questions.
I would just, Steve, I would just say this is a great example of the town and you working with one of our merchants, Catherine. So we came up with a plan that protects her interests, that doesn't expose her to unreasonable risks, and minds our interests. So I just thought it was just excellent. So thank you. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
And it's a great idea.
Yes.
You know, we've been saying for years that it would be great to have that built out. And maybe it's one of the best things that came out of COVID.
That's true. Any further questions or comments? Steve, should we take?
Before we go through this, because this was a combination of the two, I also want to say that she did submit a liquor application as well through the state. And that'll be part of this extension, and it'll be a permanent, but it'll tie with the lease. So when the lease is expired, the liquor license expires with that.
Okay, do you want to deal with these separately in terms of motions?
Yes.
Okay, let's take item number 14. And potential motion to approve a patio extension ground lease agreement with Venues Cafe, which is located at 34 Easy Street in Carefree. Is there anyone who'll make that motion?
Well, I move we approve the patio expansion ground lease agreement with Venues Cafe.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'll second that?
I'll second it.
Candace, can we do a hand vote on that?
I'm not sure what you mean, Mayor.
A yes or no?
Yay or nay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So item number 14, the patio extension ground lease agreement with Venues passes. Item number 15, a motion for a possible action to approve an application for permanent extension of premises for Venues, which is located at 34 Easy Street.
I so move.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So item number 15 passes. Adjournment. All those in
Yes.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm assuming we have no nays. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.